Hi guys, this is Sai Kumar Kortiwada. In this video, we will learn about Context API in SolidJS, and I'll split this Context API in some set of parts to understand in a better fashion. So in this video, we will see how to create the context and how to use that context in a particular component. And we will go with the respective videos and we'll try to understand a deeper way of using this context with a high level examples. So let me quickly jump into Visual Studio Code to understand this context API. Here I have app.jsx, and what I'll do is I will be creating one particular component, and the component name is something like user details.jsx, and I'll just create scomp, and you have created a functional component here. Let me copy this and go to your app.jsx and just add over here. So what I'll do here is I'll just create a signal const. I'll use something like user details, and I'll use something like set user details, and I'll make this as a signal. So let me use a create signal, and inside this signal let me use an age property. By default the value of that age is 10. So let me use something like this, and now I want to display this age in our user details. The way how we did previously is by passing the props. So let me show you how to pass through props. So here we'll be receiving these props, and I can access this user details here. So I can use user details is equal to, I can pass the user details as a signal itself, and let me save this and go to user details, and let me use this props. So props dot, I'll be getting the user details, and from that I'll be getting the age property, and user details is a signal, so I'm using a getter method over here. Let me show you the output. Now we got the 10. Now what happened is unexpectedly I got one more feature over here. So that feature is something like I have a name. So I have a name over here, and the name is Sai. So let me save this, and I want to show the name over here. So for that sake, what I am doing here is I'm using two other components. Let me create something like user name component. I want to create a separate component for this, and let me use scomp, and let me save this. Now username I want to use over here, and import this, close this. In the same way, I want to create one more file called as user age.jsx and scomp, and let me use this user age inside my user details as a separate component. Now I don't want to show the age over here, and format this. Now if I want to show age in my user age and name in my username, then what I should do is I need to pass this props in a drill down manner to my age as well as username component. How we can do is I can do something like this, where I can pass props dot user details. This is my user details, which I can get it from here. So props dot user details, and I want to pass only the name dot name, and here I can pass age as a property, and props dot user details dot age. Save this. So it will receive the age property from the props, and this will receive name property from props. So let me use like this, and let me show you something like name hyphen, and it will be receiving the name property. So let me copy this div, put it over here, and I can use something like props dot age, and this will be equal to age. Save this and save this. Let's see the output now. So here we have the output, but it is not showing any value over here. Let's see what's the problem. So let me inspect this and console. So some imports are missing, I guess. User age is not defined, so the import is missing over here. Let me import this user age and save this. Now go here, just reload. So we are getting the name and we are getting the age, but here the problem is we are just passing the values from our parent component to the child1 component and child2 components. So that means we are just passing the props in a drill down manner. How many components we have, just we are passing all the details to that props. If you really understand here, Actually speaking, if I want to update my age, then no need to change anything in my username, and if I want to update my username, there is no need to update my user age, and these two are independently available and they are separated from each other. For that sake, why we need to disturb this user details? I don't want to disturb this user details every time whenever the user details gets updated. So for that sake, we came up with a context API. So this is very small example actually speaking, but in the case you have some A component nested with B, nested with C, nested with D, and if you want to pass the data from A component to D component directly without touching anything, that is not possible with the props. That can be possible by using context API. That means at any place you may be, but you can pass the data to any of your component at any nested levels. So that's how the context API will help us. So how to reframe this using a context API example. Now this user details is available, let it be like that. Now user details is getting this data, that is also fine. So user details is available over here. Now what I want to do is I want to just use something like export const. I'll create something called as user context, and this is something like user context which is created by SolidJS by using createContext. This is the utility which is given by SolidJS for creating the context for us. And wherever you want to pass, for example, if all the components requires this user details, then it is always recommended to pass by using user context. User context will provide you one thing called as provider, and this provider will be acting like an element for us, and this provider will expect a value, and that value is something like user details. So I can pass this user details and I can avoid using over here. This user details component is the responsible person to render our age and to render our name, but it should not receive any of the props. So now it is not receiving the props. So let me remove all the props dependencies over here. So let me remove this too and save this. And also we don't need this props. Now what this user details should do is it should render our name and age, and the value is provided by this user details provider. So this provider will receive this value and can be accessed throughout our application wherever we want. So this is how we are passing the data, but how to retrieve it? Let me format this, and where we want to showcase, there we can retrieve that values. For example, I want to retrieve my user details in user age. So in that case, instead of using our props, what we can do is we can get it from our context API. So now SolidJS is also providing one more utility called as useContext. So let me get the user details over here, and that user details you can access from your context by using useContext. useContext is also a utility provided by SolidJS, and it requires the context whatever you want to use. For example, in this case, I want to use user context. Let me copy this and go here and paste here and just import it. So let me save this. Now this user details is a context API, and it will receive the value whatever you are passing over here. I am passing user details, that user details contains age, and also that user details will contain the name property. So now I'll go to the user details, and now I'll go to the user age, and I want to access this user details, and this user details is a signal, so I am using a getter method and I can get the age from there. Save this. And in the same way, if I want to use in the name, just go here and paste this, just remove the props if it is not required for you, and in this case it is not required. So let me use user details, and it is a signal, so let me use something like a name property over here and just import this user context and use context. Both I have imported. User context is the context which we have created. Use context is a utility provided by SolidJS to consume any of the context APIs. So let me go here and just reload this, and you can see the same value. Now, if you update that value, in that case, it will not follow the nested structure. Instead, it will update only that specific value. For example, I have a button over here, and I want to update the age of the signal. So let me use update age, and let me go here, just use on click, and this on click will receive a arrow function, and this arrow function will use set user details, and this set user details, I don't want to vanish the previous values, so let me use a spread operator, and just let me use something like arrow function, and inside this arrow function I can use something like off, and I want to return this flower brace values. So let me get the previous user details and then update my age with user details dot age plus 1. I want to update only the age property, so I am updating only age. In this case, my value will get updated, and all the consumers, whoever are utilizing this particular context, will get updated. So in this case, my age is using that context API and that value gets updated. So hence this particular age value will get updated. Let me go here and reload. So you got age as 10, the default value. Let me hit this. It is updating with age 10, 20, 30, and whatever the values you want, it get updated when the signal gets updated. So we can do with props as well, but whenever we are seeing in a perspective of nested components, or whenever you have a complex structure of passing the data, then the context API will comes in picture. And this context API will not only used as a value passing, but you can even pass the methods, you can update the values, and you can create a complex context API where whole user details can be separate function, and that can be executed, that can be updated, and that can provide the values to all the consumers. That example we will see in the upcoming video, where you can see all these actions. That means the user update values, the user updations, and user age updations, name updations, or any other updations you can do only with one particular component, and that component will be acting like a context component for us, and we can use that anywhere whenever we want to update any value in our code base. That's about create context in a simpler fashion. Hope you like my explanation. If you like my video, like, share, subscribe to my channel for more updates. Signing off. Thank you.